What would you say if a cop smiled at your window and got you to give up your rights in under 10 seconds? It happens fast, and most drivers never see the pressure coming. The scary part is you can talk yourself into a search, a longer stop, or even an arrest without meaning to. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you could save you from a future arrest. Smash like too, because when this happens to you on a real road, you will want these lines burned into your memory. Tonight, you're going to learn the 6 psychological tricks cops use to get quick compliance and the exact words that shut those tricks down. You'll see how a friendly question can become consent, how silence can still hurt you if you don't use the right words, how a stop that should be over gets stretched into an investigation, and why being polite is not the same as giving permission. Let me show you exactly how this works in real life. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the pattern keeps repeating. The officer stays calm. The driver tries to be nice. Then the driver starts talking too much, agrees to something small, and suddenly the whole stop changes. Most people have no idea that the biggest mistake is not yelling, running, or fighting. It's cooperating the wrong way because the pressure feels normal. Here's the reality. Most traffic stops start simple and stay simple only if you stop giving away information and permission. You think the danger is the siren. It's not. The danger is the conversation after the siren. That is where people talk themselves into trouble. A cop may sound casual, he may joke with you, he may say he is just trying to clear things up, he may act like refusing a search makes you look guilty, he may keep you talking after your warning is already done, and because you want the moment over fast, you start saying yes, start explaining, and start guessing what sounds innocent. That is exactly when you lose control. Your rights are strongest when your words are few, clear, and repeated the same way every time. The first trick is the casual search request. This one is deadly because it sounds small. The officer says something like, "You don't mind if I take a quick look, right?" Or, "Just making sure there's nothing illegal in here, okay?" That sounds harmless. It feels like a simple favor. But here's what that really is. It is a direct shot at your right to refuse a search. If you say yes, you may have just opened your own car for them. Here's exactly what you say. "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Word for word, memorize that line. Say it calm, say it once. If they ask again, say it again. This is 100% legal. You are not being rude. You are not resisting. You are simply refusing permission. And that matters because of a case called Schneckloth versus Bustamonte. In plain English, the Supreme Court said a search can still count as voluntary even if the person was never told they could say no. Read that again in your mind. They do not have to teach you your rights before asking for consent. That is why your answer matters so much. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Sure, go ahead." Then the officer starts searching bags, seats, and closed containers. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Then the officer must find some other legal reason or stop pushing. Watch what happens when you use the right line. The whole mood changes. The officer now knows you understand the game. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it creates a clean record. It shows you did not volunteer access. Without that line, later on, it often becomes your word against the officer's memory of the stop. And guess whose version usually wins if the video is unclear? The casual request works because you feel social pressure. You don't want to look nervous, you don't want to look guilty, you want to seem cooperative. But your goal is not to seem nice. Your goal is to protect your freedom. A calm refusal does that. If the officer truly has legal grounds, he will do what he will do anyway. But if he does not, your no keeps you from handing him the key yourself. Still watching? Good. Drop a comment and tell me if you've ever been asked for a quick look during a stop, because that one phrase traps a lot of people. The second trick is the guilt flip. This is when the officer makes refusal sound suspicious. He says, "If you've got nothing to hide, why not let me check?" Or, "Only guilty people say no." Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. Your rights mean the most when you are innocent. Guilty people and innocent people both have rights. Rights are not a prize for acting relaxed. They are protection when power is pushing on you. Here's exactly what you say. "I respect your job, but I do not consent to any searches." Keep it short. Do not explain. Do not argue. Do not try to prove you are clean. The more you explain, the more material you hand over. Bad way. Most drivers say, I guess that's fine. I just don't want trouble." Then their nervous words get treated like consent. Good way. Smart drivers say, "I respect your job, but I do not consent to any searches." Then the officer hears a clear boundary, not fear. This trick works because it targets your ego. You want to prove you are a good person. You want the officer to like you, but law is not built on whether an officer likes your attitude. It is built on whether you gave permission, whether there was probable cause, and whether the stop stayed lawful. Ohio versus Robinette matters here. In simple English, the Supreme Court said police do not have to tell you that you are free to go before asking for consent to search. So if you're waiting for some magic moment where the officer officially frees you first, do not count on it. He can return your license, smile, relax the tone, and still ask for a search. That is why you must not read comfort into the officer's voice. A soft tone does not mean the pressure is gone. Former police officers have confirmed this works because drivers confuse friendliness with safety. The officer sounds nice, the driver feels less alert, then consent slips out in 1 second. Your calm refusal is stronger than 10 nervous explanations. The third trick is the never-ending stop. The reason you got pulled over may be done, but the conversation keeps going. Maybe you already got the warning. Maybe your documents were handed back. Then comes, hang on 1 more second, or before you go, let me ask you something. That is not random. That is an attempt to stretch the moment and fish for new reasons to investigate. You look at the officer and say this, am I being detained or am I free to leave? Those exact words. Keep your voice level. Do not speed off, do not argue, just ask the question. This is 100% legal, and it matters because of Rodriguez versus United States. In plain English, the Supreme Court said police cannot extend a traffic stop longer than needed just to do extra investigation like a dog sniff unless they have real additional suspicion. That means the stop has a job. Once that job is done, they cannot keep you there just because they feel curious. Bad way. Most drivers say, yeah, what's up? Then the stop keeps going, the questions get deeper, and new suspicion gets built from their own answers. Good way. Smart drivers say, am I being detained or am I free to leave? Then the officer has to either end the stop or clearly state a legal reason to keep it going. Watch what happens when you ask this. The vague fishing trip suddenly has to become specific. That is huge. If the officer says you are free to leave, leave calmly. If he says you are being detained, stop talking and ask why. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection when a simple stop starts turning into something bigger. This trick works because time wears you down. Every extra minute makes you more likely to talk. You think, maybe if I just answer one more thing, I can get out of here faster. Usually the opposite happens. One more answer becomes 5 more. Then comes the search request again. Then maybe the dog. Then maybe the call for backup. You do not beat that by being more chatty. You beat it by forcing the legal moment into the open. 90% of drivers don't know what's coming next. If you're still here, you're serious about protecting your rights, so hit that like button and stay with me because the next 3 tricks are the ones that make calm people crack. The 4th trick is the silence bait after Miranda or during questioning. A lot of people think staying quiet is enough. It is not always enough. Listen closely because this is critical. If police are questioning you and you want the protection of silence, you need to say it clearly. Here's exactly what you say. I am invoking my right to remain silent, and I want a lawyer. Say both parts. Say them together, then stop talking. Why both parts? Because of a case called Berghuis versus Thompkins. In plain English, the court said that just sitting there in silence did not clearly use the right to remain silent. The suspect eventually answered a question, and that answer was used against him. Here's the reality. Silence feels powerful, but unclear silence can be twisted. Clear words are stronger. Bad way. Most drivers say, I don't know, maybe I should stay quiet. Then the officer keeps talking, keeps asking, and later claims the person never clearly invoked anything. Good way. Smart drivers say, I am invoking my right to remain silent and I want a lawyer. Then questioning is on much shakier ground and the record is far cleaner. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it leaves less room for games. You are not being difficult. You are creating a clear boundary. You do not need to sound smart. You need to sound firm. No speeches, no angry rant. No, but I didn't do anything. Just the line. Then silence. The 5th trick is separation and repetition. One officer talks to you, another talks to your passenger, or they come back again and again with the same question in a different tone. The goal is simple. They want your stories to drift apart. They want one of you to get tired. They want somebody to say something different on round 3 than round 1. Here's exactly what you say. I don't answer questions without a lawyer. If you are just the passenger and not required to identify yourself under local law, keep it even shorter. I choose not to answer questions. This trick works because repeated questions feel like you should finally give a fuller answer. You think maybe they just did not understand you the first time. No, they understood you. They are testing your consistency. That is why the shortest answer is often the safest answer. Pennsylvania versus Mimms also matters in a different way. In plain English, police can usually order a driver out of a lawfully stopped car. So do not confuse stepping out with losing every other right. If you are told to step out, comply physically. But do not start chatting your way into a bigger problem. Compliance with movement is not consent to questioning. Former police officers have confirmed this works because once people are separated, they start trying to sound helpful. Then tiny differences become lies. You said you left 5 minutes ago. Your passenger said 10. You said you were headed home. He said you were headed to the store first. Now the officers claim your stories do not match, and that mismatch becomes fuel for more detention. Short, calm, repeated refusal shuts that down. The sixth trick is the false choice. The officer makes it sound like you have two options: cooperate now and go home, or hold firm and make things worse. You hear lines like, "Help me out and I'll help you out," or "If you're honest, this can stay simple." That sounds fair. It is pressure. Here's exactly what you say. "I want to comply with lawful orders, but I do not consent to searches and I do not answer questions without a lawyer." That sentence is strong because it gives them nothing extra while still sounding calm and respectful. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Okay, I'll tell you everything, I just want to go home." Then the officer gets admissions, consent, and more reasons to keep digging. Good way. Smart drivers say, "I want to comply with lawful orders, but I do not consent to searches, and I do not answer questions without a lawyer." Then the officer gets a clear line and much less leverage. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings and from how stops actually unfold on camera. The law often turns on simple things. Did you consent? Did you clearly invoke silence? Did the stop get extended? Did you keep talking after the officer had already moved beyond the traffic issue? Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection because it covers the two biggest danger zones at once: searching and questioning. Now let's lock the legal framework in your head. Schneckloth versus Bustamonte means police do not have to warn you that you can refuse a search before asking. So your refusal must come from you, fast and clear. Ohio versus Robinette means they do not have to say you are free to go before they ask for consent. So do not wait for some perfect, obvious ending to the stop. Rodriguez versus United States means they cannot drag out a stop longer than needed for extra investigation unless they have new, real suspicion. And Berghuis versus Thompkins means you should not rely on silence alone if you want to invoke your rights. Say the words out loud. Pennsylvania versus Mimms means they can usually tell you to step out of the car during a lawful stop, so obey that order, but do not confuse obedience with open-ended cooperation. Let me show you exactly how all of this plays out in one clean scenario. You get pulled over for a broken taillight. The officer walks up and asks for license and registration. You hand them over, so far normal. Then he asks where you're coming from and whether there's anything illegal in the car. Wrong way first. You start explaining your whole night. You say you were at a friend's house, then correct yourself and say first you stopped for gas. He notices the shift. He comes back and says, "You don't mind if I take a quick look, right?" You laugh nervously and say, I guess that's okay." Search starts. He finds something that belongs to somebody else, maybe even something harmless that now needs explaining. Another officer arrives. They separate you and your passenger. The stop grows teeth. Now the right way, same broken taillight, same documents, same first few questions. You stay calm and say, "I choose not to answer questions." He asks for a search. You say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." He keeps smiling and says, "If you have nothing to hide, why not?" You repeat, "I do not consent to any searches." Watch what happens. The conversation stops feeling easy for him. He either needs real legal grounds or he needs to move on. He returns your documents and says, "Hang on one more second." You ask, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" If he says free to leave, you leave calmly. If he says detained, you stop talking. If he pushes questions anyway, you say, "I am invoking my right to remain silent and I want a lawyer." That is the difference. Same road, same stop. Totally different outcome. Next week, I'm revealing what to say when cops claim they smell weed. Subscribe right now because that one gets people searched every single day, and if you miss it, you may miss the one line that protects your whole car. So here's the recap. First, never give casual consent just because the request sounds friendly. Second, never let guilt pressure trick you into proving innocence by surrendering privacy. Third, ask if you are being detained or free to leave when the stop keeps dragging on. Fourth, if questioning starts, clearly say you are invoking silence and want a lawyer. Fifth, obey lawful orders like stepping out, but do not turn obedience into open-ended conversation. Sixth, do not accept the false choice between cooperate and go home. You can be calm, respectful, and protected at the same time. Hit subscribe so you catch the next video on smell-based searches and drug dog tricks. Smash that like button if this video just gave you words you can actually use under pressure. And drop a comment telling me which exact line you're going to remember first. Stay safe out there. F.